Welcome to Scrutinize My System. This episode will be looking at MS-DOS and PC-DOS version 1 and how Microsoft was able to inflate the popularity. The year is 1981. Microsoft as a company had already built itself upon lies and mysterious non-existent prototypes. It had barely dished out a crude project to satisfy one of its bigger hypes of having a working operating system for the Altair 8800, barely making it on time to demonstrate mere concepts. The company's focus was primarily on money. They strived to get their hands in every piece of technology that was available, despite having little to no resources on their own. With the increasing growth of computers, they needed something fast. The company, however, was no stranger to rebranding other people's operating systems. They had already borrowed Xenix from AT&T and were actively seeking out a new one to take its place. This time, they had their sights on 86DOS, a quick CP/M clone that Seattle Computers assembled for one of their own machines. It worked, and that was all that mattered. They would proceed to license the system for their own use, eventually outright buying the rights and hiring the programmer, Tim Patterson. Then, the rebranding began. Out of the box, Microsoft would immediately call it MS-DOS, or Microsoft Disk Operating System. They would then immediately relicense the same operating system to other companies like Compaq and Sanyo. Each copy would be tailored to the hardware of the company, though because most of the computers were rather similar to each other, there was very little difference, if any at all. Their biggest customer, however, would be IBM, and IBM expected Microsoft to pamper them to exclusive software. IBM was facing a market full of what was called IBM clones, and wanted to keep their grip on the computer market. For the time being, IBM would call their version PC-DOS to represent it for the IBM PC line. Though it was still MS-DOS under the hood, IBM held it as if it was their own operating system. Although insignificant early on, the difference will play a key role in the operating system's family tree. Because of the little difference, however, MS-DOS and PC-DOS were thought of to be interchangeable. MS-DOS can run on IBM PCs natively, while PC-DOS can run on its competitors' clones. Alright, time to demonstrate these. I have 4 different operating systems I want to show everybody. I got 2 knockoff versions of MS-DOS. I guess I shouldn't say knockoff versions because there's no real retail version of this. And then we have PC-DOS, which is also MS-DOS. Now, I separate MS-DOS and PC-DOS from each other because down the line they're going to have some significant importance in the names in the family tree. But for the time being, up until version 6, they're all pretty much going to be the same. That includes MS-DOS and PC-DOS 1. So the first one I want to show you is Zenith. Zenith MS-DOS, which is as close to the original as you're going to get for MS-DOS. And the reason I say that is because when this came out, there really wasn't a retail version of this. There was no boxes, there was no buy it off the shelf and upgrade your computer. Every computer was still different at the time. And IBM kind of did a service for putting out standards by using the same processor, and everybody was using the same processor because eventually a lot of the computers were starting to have the same architecture underneath the hood. I guess I shouldn't say architecture. They're having the same processors, in which having the same processors usually made it easier to run the same operating system. It didn't always work, but having the same processor gave it a huge advantage. And a lot of people, they were trying to essentially recreate a IBM computer. So with that said, I was able to run this on a very generic, I shouldn't say generic, it was Oracle VM VirtualBox, which is pretty much an 86 emulator. It does 86 and 64 processors, so 32-bit is 64-bit, but MS-DOS is running at 16-bit, so that doesn't matter anyways. So Zenith operating system is very bare bones. That's kind of what I like about it, is because you don't have a whole lot of bloatware on here. You just have the bare necessities to be able to get the machine up and running and maybe do a few things. Like you still got the check disk utility, which survived 86 DOS. 86 DOS.
That to this day is still on Microsoft's operating systems. So not much has changed there. I'm going to go ahead and shut these down as I'm going through them, and then I'll do a final boot up just to show you what they all look like. But ultimately, you'll notice that all of them look exactly the same. They have the same fonts. They have the same screen settings. Almost all of them have the same screen resolution. In fact, I think they do have the same screen resolution. The compact's a little wonky, but we'll get to that in a second. So shutting it down, there was no soft shutdown for MS-DOS or PC-DOS. You essentially just had to force the machine to turn off. And that's it. So compact, let's go ahead and show you that one. I'll show you how much more bloatware that this is on, or that they put on this machine. Let's just go ahead and use the default date. I'll type that in, and look at that. You got a lot of bloatware. You got a lot of all this miscellaneous stuff. It looks like you got a lot of demos in here too, and I'll run one of the demos. Why not? And you'll notice here too that, you know, the font's the same, the prompt's the same, almost everything's exactly the same. You can't really clear this. Let me reboot that. Force it to shut off, and I do want to show you something I kind of skipped over. Yeah, we'll use the default date, use the default time. This one here, you see the compact the compact personal computer DOS. That says copyright Compact Computer Corp 1982, and then you've got Microsoft's icon on the bottom of it. Nowhere on here does it say it's MS-DOS, but it is MS-DOS. And that's the funny thing about this, is you'll start seeing everybody slapping their own labels, slapping their own brands on pretty much all of these. They essentially, the process here is that Microsoft licenses 86-DOS, and then later on outright buys it, and then licenses it, and then other companies license it from Microsoft. So essentially Microsoft is gaining a lot of money that probably should have gone to Seattle Computer, but you know how Bill Gates is. He's a professional scam artist. So technically, Bill Gates did not invent this. Technically, he's just a retailer. So with this one here, I was going to say I was going to run the demo. So let's go ahead and run the demo. I'll just show you this, all the fancy things that they've got. And you'll notice the screen resolution changed a little bit. I'll just show one, because I only have so much time on here. You look how they really try to show this computer off and everything with their limited pixels, limited graphics, but it's like, oh, look at this. You can edit all the graphs, you can edit all the text and everything. Fancy. And then the screen resolution goes back after you change it. And I thought it was interesting that it was switching back and forth in between two different screen resolutions, which I'm sure caused a lot of flickering in their old machines. So that is a compact version. And unfortunately with that, it kind of shows you that even from the beginning, companies were kind of putting their own bloatware into these old machines and in the new machines. That's a practice that's never really gone away, unfortunately. It's only gotten worse. So the next one on the list is going to be PC-DOS 1.0. I'll show you there's some minor differences between 1.0 and 1.1. You really have to squint at it. So for 1.0, you have to enter today's date right off the bat. So let's just give it to the default one. So let's say if the number lock it actually works. So 1/1/1980, because that's the default time on it. And then this one says the IBM Personal Computer DOS version 1.0, copyright IBM Corp 1981. Nowhere on here does it say Microsoft. So this was kind of interesting that IBM tried to outright deprecate Microsoft from the copyright claim and everything. Even though under the hood it was pretty much Microsoft that was giving them the operating system, essentially slapping PC-DOS over it. And functionally, it's exactly the same. It's running through the same emulator. It's running through the same. It's got the same file format, which is FAT12. None of these support file directories. Again, remember, it was off of 86 DOS. Somebody just quickly dished one out in 6 weeks. And Microsoft's like, I want to relabel that one, and I want to sell it. And then you got Paul Allen and Bill Gates essentially mass scamming the world. And they'll scam it until they start retiring. So, yeah, this is pretty much it. So this is DOS 1.0, or PC DOS 1.0. Let's go ahead and boot up PC DOS 1.1. And I'm shutting these down so you can actually see it opening and closing. And like I said, it's running through a generic virtual machine. Right now I have it running through Oracle VM VirtualBox, which you can pretty much, it's open source. You can get it pretty much anywhere. Now immediately you'll probably notice that there is a current date already set on here for January 1st, 1980. I can just press enter and it will just accept it. And then here it says the IBM Personal Computer DOS version 1.10, copyright IBM Corp. 1981-1982. So not much has changed. In fact, the files are almost exactly the same. So that's really it. Anyways, I'm going to restart. Let's do PC DOS 1.1 and then let's do Compact. Let's boot them both up. So here's PC DOS, and then MS-DOS Compact is going to run right behind here. So this is PC DOS. Let's go ahead and switch to Compact. This is Compact. And it doesn't look like I'm changing in between the two operating systems, but I am. So let's go ahead and hit enter on that one. And then for the other one, let's go ahead and hit enter as well. It's almost exactly the same. I mean, you can tell I'm switching back and forth now that it shows the time. Let's go ahead and hit enter on this one. Now you can see it's the IBM Personal Computer, the PC DOS. And then the other one, we'll go ahead and hit enter. You'll see the Compact Personal Computer DOS version 1.11. And then you got Compact. And then they were the ones that were courteous enough to mention Microsoft, even though they kind of don't deserve it. But then you got PC DOS, which is running here. And IBM just IBM's one of those companies where they're very prideful. They refuse to acknowledge anything was outsourced. So that's why you don't see Microsoft anywhere on here. And then you got Compact, which is like, yeah, we're borrowing Microsoft software, even though they're borrowing it from someone else as well. But that's DOS 1.0 in a nutshell. If you have any comments, please leave a comment in the section below. I probably missed a lot here. Obviously, I'm only showing 2 different variants of MS-DOS. And again, I had to use the ones that were originally OEM versions because there was no retail version of this. So that's why I'm using the Compact and the Zenith. They were the easiest ones to show. If you like this video, please subscribe. I got more videos on the way. I'm going to be continuing MS-DOS. We also got Apple videos that we're going to be coming out with. And stay tuned for more.